Well, hello friends, Mark Holmes here, and as always, thank you guys for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, man, you know this doesn't work without you guys, man. I literally live football 24/7, 365 days a year. I mean, you guys know, all off season, every day, I'm talking about football and life in general. And this is exciting because we are getting close to the season. We are 2 weeks away from us having our first game against those New York stinking Giants. And we've seen some decent things. I know it's preseason because I've got Eagle trolls in here talking about the Texans aren't anything like, you know, the Eagles. Well, here's something the Texans did last year that you sorry Eagles didn't do. The Texans actually beat us in overtime. Yeah. So when you go through and talk about how bad the Texans are, I understand it's preseason, but don't try and throw shade on another team, because had it not been for Carson Wentz getting hurt and Nick Foles saving your season again, we would have said, you know, well, beating the Eagles too, you know, it's not like they were a playoff team, because the Texans were. But be that as it may, again, you have to tamp your expectations for preseason, because teams aren't necessarily game planning for you and stuff like that. But what you look at is, what you want to do is you want to develop these guys on the second level and see where you are if something happens where you have one of your starters go down. And I got to tell you, we have some hard choices to make here next week, because figuring out who's going to be here. Now, back to preseason here. I've already got up this morning. You guys saw me doing a video in the shop because I was doing some work before I drove down to Waynesboro. I've been over, took care of some issues at an apartment. There was a screw in the garbage disposal, and the toilet needed some new guts. Got that stuff squared away, and now just wait for my wife and my mother-in-law to get ready to go back up the road. So I've done my work already. But back to preseason here. It's like, whether or not we go to 18 games or not, you really need to get the preseason over with. I mean, let's be honest here. When it comes to the game this week coming up, we play Tampa Bay. I'm sorry. It's really unwatchable. I'm not even sure that I'll do a live stream doing it. It's not going to be a live game on NFL Network, so I have to watch it on Game Pass. But you're talking about guys who aren't going to be on the team. You know, you saw the 2 series with Dak Prescott and what starters that we currently still have left on that aren't injured. The NFL just needs to do away with it. They really just need to stop. I would rather just no fourth game and just have the 2 weeks to get ready for the season opener. I mean, seriously, it's really pointless. And that's where Jerry Jones was asked about that. And here's the thing. You know, you've got to read between the lines with what you hear and things like that, because Jerry was asked, you know, is there any discussion and things about, you know, reducing the preseason things? And he said, yeah, you know, we are looking into that. You know, I've been part of negotiations when we've been meeting on, you know, weekly. Because here's the thing, you got to okay? I have been on the hunt down, because this is important. This is really important that the NFL and the NFLPA come together with an agreement, okay? We need those guys to get their stuff together so there's not a lockout and there's not a strike, okay? They have to understand that, you know, there is no NFL without these players, and the players have to understand that there is no pay without the NFL. You two sides need to just be able to work this thing out so it's equitable between both of you. It's like a marriage, okay? You're not always going to get your way. You got to choose your battles and figure out, is this the thing that I want to die on? But here's the thing. Here's how you know there's problems in negotiations. It's because you start hearing about them, okay? When you hear, you know, that we already offered him second most money, that means the negotiations aren't going the way the Dallas Cowboys wanted with Zeke Elliott. You know, when you hear Dak Prescott wants $40 million, that is a play to try and use public opinion to help sway the negotiations, okay? We're not hearing that between the NFL and the NFLPA. Now understand, there's good and bad for both sides on the current agreement. The fact that we've been able, or both sides have been able to increase their money says that it's a good deal. And generally speaking, when you make an agreement that both sides are kind of mad, then actually it's a good agreement for both sides. But things in there that are probably being looked at, we know about Josh Gordon being reinstated by the NFL after his many substance abuse. You've got to figure that the NFL is going to kind of drop back on that some, especially as we're finding out more and more about the prescription pain meds and things that players have to take on a regular basis to be able to perform. That marijuana doesn't seem quite as bad. Now, cocaine, Patriots, that's a different story. The other thing is the NFLPA is probably going to be looking at the way the NFL has this lockdown with the 4 and 5 year windows before free agency. See, if you're a quarterback, it's not so bad because you're going to be drafted, generally speaking, pretty high unless you're a Dak Prescott and you outperform your contract. But when you're a running back, this is where, I know Zeke has issues and things, but this is where they have to look at this kind of differently because there needs to be an escalator in there because you are, just put like something like the top 5. If you end up outperforming your contract X amount of money, they do have some things in there for the further drafted one. Dak did get a raise because he outperformed his contract, or he had so many snaps. I think it is if you have over 35% of your snaps, offensively, that you end up getting a raise. I know Alfred Morris got that when he was a 6th round draft pick with the Redskins, and he ended up playing all the time. But there needs to be something that's more equitable. When a guy like Melvin Gordon ends up being one of the top running backs and his pay compensation is only $2.5 million, that's where they need to say, okay, if you're the top 5 of a position, if you end up performing that well, regardless of what you signed for, you need to become whole in there. And that's those things that need to be worked out. And if that happens, guys, Damaris, remember, just toss a brother a bone, because that is a way to help eliminate these problems. And that's where, hopefully, there's people smarter than me, and hopefully they are hammering away and figuring out how to make this stuff together. Because again, you're a running back. Your career is short. You're performing. You're doing what you're supposed to on the field. There needs to be able to be a way to bump that thing up that ends up being equitable. Because in the end, this isn't doing the Dallas Cowboys, Zeke Elliott, or the NFL any favors by having your premium players holding out and then coming in and being thrown into the fire and risking injury. See, this is where it becomes a partnership between the two of them, a marriage, so to speak. So maybe we can cut down on these preseason games that will be unwatchable, okay? And maybe we can find a way that everybody becomes whole monetarily for what they're doing on the field. And for those out there that say, well, he signed the contract. Well, he had no choice but to sign that contract because that's the way the system is set up. And you sign a contract with the NFL, you can do what you were supposed to do on the contract, but they can still cut you and you don't get compensated. So you could say the same thing about the NFL. Well, they should honor the contract that they signed with me, but it's not that way. And so that's where you need to look at the whole picture. But I'm believing that things are going well with the NFL and the NFLPA, and I would not be surprised with them having an agreement before the end of the season this year, if not sooner, because I think they both want to get this thing done and keep everything flowing. And make no mistake about it, because social media is becoming so powerful, you're looking at new players and new money that's going to be coming into the NFL, and there's enough pie to go around. All right, so I'm going to see if my wife and my mother-in-law are ready so I can go drive this 150 miles and get back home. So I can do some more work. I'm Mark Holmes. I'll see you guys soon.